Naughty and nice, presents and coal. It's the Christmas holiday special of Autoline After Hours.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone, your journey, our passion. And by Chevrolet, Chevy runs deep.
This is Autoline After Hours with John McElroy, episode 176 for December 21st, 2012. Naughty and nice. It's Christmas time at Autoline. Watch Autoline After Hours live at Autoline.tv every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time or 2300 GMT. You can subscribe to this podcast for free by searching for Autoline in iTunes, Stitcher, or by following the links on our website. Peter.
John, how are you?
I'm doing good, man.
I'm going to look at this camera and talk to you at the same time.
Then I'll look at the screen. Hey, dude!
How you doing? I'm doing well.
Cool.
Not really, but I'm fine.
Good enough to do the show.
Yeah.
And then we got Jim Hall. John!
The man who knew too much.
Who still does.
Yes.
Even though it's reducing. He doesn't know as much as he used to, but it's still too much.
Is that because it's coming out? I say things and then I forget what I've said right after I said them.
And of course, the fourth voice that
Did you know I say things and then forget that I said them?
No, I didn't. What did you say?
I don't know.
Is Gary Vasilash.
John?
From Automotive Design and Production. Good having you all. And before we get into our whole Christmas thing and the news and all that, we got to pick up from last week because Peter brought in some pretty cool stuff from the Infinity Red Bull team. Did I say that right?
Yes, Infinity Red Bull Racing.
So there's this
team.
cool shirt that the team wears. Yep. This isn't stuff that you picked up at one of those kiosks out by the track.
No.
Bernie's Money Farm.
And then this really cool book.
Yeah.
I mean, a tome. It's a beautiful book on the whole season and everything else. So we asked people to tweet out that they are watching Autoline After Hours, and we picked a number of those tweets. No, we picked all of them. We printed them out, and now I got a hat right here. Do you want to pick it out?
No, let Jim do it.
Jim, pick a name.
Pick a name. I'm not looking.
Any name.
Is that one?
That's one. Go ahead. Who's the winner here?
Jim Hall. Oh.
At Parham.
At Parham. Okay. P-A-R-I-M.
P-A-R-I-M.
Okay. So at Parham, you just won one of these gifts, and Gary will have you pick out the other and figure out who our other winner is here.
And this would be at that Dave Marsh.
Okay, at that Dave Marsh and
the,
at
rock
Parham.
and roll guy.
We will be in contact with you guys with a direct message because we want to make sure that you get what you just won. So, did I do that right, Ben?
Make sure they follow us. Follow at Autoline so we can direct message them privately.
Okay, so message us, follow at Autoline, and then we can touch with you.
Your address and stuff.
Yeah, so we need to get your address so we can mail these things out to you guys. Okay, cool.
I think you need to give it to him.
So, the news this week. I guess some of the big stuff that happened is General Motors is going to buy back, 200 million of its shares, and...
In roundabout numbers, who's counting?
200 million of the 500 million. Mm-hmm. And the government is going to sell the remaining 300 million in drips and drabs over the next...
12 to 15 months, they say.
So how did this all come about? I mean, the government's been holding on to this for years, and, why? Just before Christmas, just before the fiscal cliff, they decided it's a good time to start getting rid of the stock?
Well, it sounds like it definitely was something that came from Treasury, and it looks like they sort of thought, okay, we've got the new administration in, let's see what our options were. I think it started when they confirmed that they were going to be the administration, and they started looking at their options. I think they took a look at how much cash General Motors had on hand and said, guys, it might be a good idea.
And GM said, well, sure, we'll buy it at face value. And I said, no. You're going to have to give us a little more than that.
So I was sort of wondering when I saw that, I'm sure we'll get to this at some point, the fine that NHTSA charged Toyota of $17.35 million. And I calculated that given it's $27.50 a share, they could buy 631,000 shares of General Motors.
That's a nice down payment. There you go.
Guess what? The fine they pay is probably cheaper than the recall would have been, or could have been.
They still have to recall.
Yeah, but you know how people participate in recalls.
Yes, but recalls are expensive because you've got to send to every registered or owner on file a registered letter that ain't cheap. And when you have recalls involving millions of cars, you're talking about some money just in the postage. Seriously, and that's all part of the cost of administering a recall. And you got somebody that's got to do it.
But $17.5 million.
But
although it's an unprecedented amount for recall of that, or for a fine for a recall of that nature.
I understand, but they probably lose that in their sofa cushions.
Right. They probably do.
The coins those guys have that sit on that cushion, I have never seen a 250 million yen coin, but they got them in their pockets. Oh, well, let's go.
So does, going back to GM for the moment, does selling the stock finally convince the public that it's okay to buy GM cars if you were one of those who said, I'll never buy a government motors car?
No, because those people will never be back.
A lot of those people, too, are using government motors, the moniker, as an excuse for not buying a GM car that they wouldn't buy anyway.
Yeah.
I'm serious. It's just like there were people at the peak of Toyota's bad time 2 years ago, there were people that said, oh, you see, and this was simply an excuse for someone that wasn't going to buy a Toyota to make sure he had a good reason. And I think it's exactly the same here. There are a lot of buyers. They aren't going to be there. Now, there's some that are brand loyal and product loyal, like the hardcore Silverado buyer says, I just can't buy one, I can't buy one. He's going to buy another one. And this may get him to buy a 2014 instead of a 2016.
Speaking of Silverado, what's this deal about them switching ad agencies? Just with the truck, right?
Totally nonsensical. Now, being an ad guy, sure, if you want to ship an assignment out to another agency, that happens all the time, especially in this era. But what is GM's biggest problem in the truck market? Differentiating between Chevrolet Silverado and GMC pickups. So what do? They hand the Silverado assignment to GM's GMC agency. But it makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, if I'm going to hand Silverado to somebody, I'm going to go to an agency, a big agency in Texas, the world center of pickup truck sales, and say, gee, you guys might have an expertise in this area because you live here, and I'll get something really great.
I mean, they even could have done McCann.
Yeah.
I mean, McCann itself, because McCann itself is still doing some stuff separate from, the Converged company. Commonwealth,
Wasn't Commonwealth supposed to be the Uber company
Chevrolet.
that do everything, though?
For Chevrolet.
Right. And the other lame-ass excuse GM said in their announcement was, well, Commonwealth is so busy and we have 14 launches, we thought, what? I mean, no ad agency in the world is going to turn work down. I mean,
you never know. Busy. Go away.
I mean, so it's just, I fear for GM when it comes to marketing. They just.
Has this ever happened before where you pull out a model from an agency and give it to another agency?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, GM hasn't done it very often.
I think they have in the past. I think when they had Campbell Ewald and they were having, who's that agency that was doing some stuff for Chevy but not all, and they pulled a couple of launches for those guys. So it's happened before, but it kind of makes sense in a way to get new blood in for a launch.
It makes sense, but don't put it under the same roof where you have your GMC agents.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense to do that.
Agreed. The other thing, when you do set something out for a launch, you're going to lose continuity from the launch advertising to the mainstream advertising when it goes back to the house agency.
But you know what's driving this? This is what's driving everything about General Motors, which we'll get in later, is cost. They figure that they will save money. They're not thinking about what's going to be the best advertising.
But wouldn't you save even more by going to a house that doesn't have an account from you anyway and would be happy to get the business, like the Texas house?
Would be hungry?
Yeah.
Sure, that might cut their commission?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very frustrating as an ad guy.
But here's another question, because you guys are the ad experts on this, isn't changing agencies 6 months before the launch cutting it awfully close?
I mean, any agency is worth their salt can do it.
And a lot of the stuff now is electronic. It's not like you've got to get a vehicle and go ship it and ship a crew to photograph it, because so much of this now, you're seeing a lot of digital cars, you don't know it, that are digitally placed in the background. So that part of it is easier managed than it used to be.
Well, you still physically have to shoot the commercials, so that's...
Right.
But this is about coming up with an idea.
Right.
And trusting that the people in charge at GM Marketing know what to do, know what is a good idea. I don't have any trust in that area.
Well, they better get it right because you look at their sales compared to what Ford's doing.
I mean,
it's
talk about the heartbeat of their company.
Yeah.
They got to get it right.
Look, I remember
pull
when
the paddles out.
Yeah.
I remember when GM's truck program was number 22 on the Fortune 500, i.e., if you had broken the truck program out of General Motors, it alone was a Fortune 22 company. It was unreal. I doubt it's that far up the list right now.
It depends. The whole economy's down. It might still be there. Yeah. I'm serious. It might be. I mean.
Hey, one more news item before we get to our presents and lumps of coal. This IIHS, Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, crash test, where they're doing
this. Hi, this is Scott in Cleveland.
Right.
In Cleveland.
Yeah. Hey.
I was just wondering on the.
You're out here.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We will probably hear from Scott later, though.
Yeah, I think we will. I think we're going to get a call from Scott in Cleveland. But yeah, what do you guys make of this IIHS where very few automakers are passing this small offset test, except for Honda?
Well, as you guys pointed out on Daily, that Honda has been talking to IIHS for a long time, so they kind of had a feel for what was going on. That said, you know, it's another IIHS test that is, according to them, highly representative. In which case, I would think you'd have a lot more injuries of these devastating kind they talk about when they show the accident that you don't seem to be having numbers. And I think, wasn't this the lowest fatality rate?
Year ever.
Yeah, ever.
Or actually, maybe, well, not ever.
No, I know, but since there have been significant models on the road.
Correct.
And,
yeah. In more than half a century.
Yeah. So IIHS is, it's the Insurance Institute. What they want to do is pay nothing out in any kind of a claim. So they want cars to basically be perfectly safe. Perfectly safe is impossible. They need to be you want a safe car. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you build a car with spikes that come out of the dash if you're not wearing a seatbelt, but there's a certain Darwinian aspect of that I actually like.
You know what's funny about that is the Accord and the Suzuki Kizashi were the two that were named, right?
Yep.
And we know
that passed the test.
That passed the test. And so from the IIHS release about this, they're talking about the Kizashi's results. And it says, the car which Suzuki introduced in the 2010 model year is the only mid-sized, moderately priced car to earn a good rating for structure in the small overlap test. The Kizashi also earns good ratings in the moderate overlap frontal test, side test, and seat/head restraint evaluation. Its roof strength rating, however, is acceptable, so it has never qualified for top safety pick.
But if you keep on reading, they gave it to it anyway.
So the president of the IIHS, whatever,
Mr. Lund.
Mr. Lund says the Kizashi is a rare case. It's a good small overlap test performance outweighs its acceptable rollover rating. So the car is a top safety pick plus.
So we
it's
have
never
here,
a top safety pick, but now it's immediately plus.
See, now this is where we have this wonderful subjectivity that they sort of pass around without telling you how it happens. It's basically, this is the man behind the curtain, you know?
But wait, there's an even more interesting thing here, too. The IIHS can't crash everything, right?
It's physically impossible. You don't have the money for it.
They don't have the money for it. So you got to be very careful about the cars that you do crash, right? Mm-hmm. That have got to be significant. Excuse me, but isn't the Suzuki Kizashi going to stop being on sale next month?
Yeah.
They're dropping out of the market.
Yeah.
So why would the IIHS select a car to crash test from a company that's already said, we're out of here. We can't compete. We're getting, why would you pick that car?
Bad judgment.
No. There's more going on here, I assure you. They knew it was going to do well on that small offset. And that's why I believe they chose that car. I have no inside information on this, but why would you pick it except to show that, hey, here's another car that passed the test? And otherwise, we'd all be saying, how come the Accord is the only mid-size car that's able to pass this test? And I get back to what I said on Daily today. It's because Honda's been working hand in glove with the Institute. Going back at least 3 years ago, they knew this test was coming. Honda's told me that. And others like Toyota, which the Institute excoriated in that release that you're reading from.
Toyota engineers have a lot of work to do to match the performance of their competitors, Lund says.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think they have any credibility, so I never.
Yeah.
And
The problem is every time they do a crash, and NBC News has it on the network news on Sunday, and it's like, wow.
They have a partnership with NBC News.
I know.
Oh, are you kidding?
These guys, they do?
Yes.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
It always gets released first on NBC News.
Yeah,
Now
they
let's
have a first right to refusal for anything they do.
So we're talking about true objectivity here, you know?
Unreal.
They are as honest as the day is long.
Hey, I know who to give a lump of coal to, but that's the next segment of the show, and we ought to get there. But, Ben, first, before we do that, let's get to our first commercial break and give a shout-out to our friends at Bridgestone.
Oh, wow. The snowflakes blowing across the set. Gigantic, too.
Okay, so now we get to the real topic of what this show is about. We're going to be giving out presents for those who have been nice and lumps of coal for those who have been naughty in the automotive industry. And let's start out on a nice note. Let's start out with some presents. And Peter, let's start with you. Who would you give a present to for good performance in the industry this year?
Roger Penske. Yeah, Roger, you know, I can't say enough about Roger, both in business and the racetrack. And he finally achieved one of his final goals in racing, which was to win the NASCAR championship. And he's just the most relentlessly focused guy you'd ever meet. And, you know, one of his mantras is effort equals results, and nobody outworks Roger Penske. And his team are incredibly loyal. And he's just, you know, I couldn't say enough about him.
Would have been a hell of a guy to run Saturn.
Yeah. How
I thought
about
he was supposed to run for General Motors, yeah. Remember that?
I do.
So what do you think would have been the consequence of that?
If he had ran General Motors, they never would have gone bankrupt. They would
be a different company
been
today.
A different company.
They'd have a factory racing program, too.
Yeah.
Well, they do. It's called Corvette Racing, but that's.
But I mean in many different venues.
Yeah.
No, he's an amazing guy. You know, look at his success in various aspects of the business.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's owning a supplier company like Detroit Diesel, you know, owning
His dealer network.
the dealer network, the rental trucks, you know, logistics, really, we should say, not just trucks, logistics company.
Yeah, he's an incredible guy, and I've had the pleasure of knowing him for a long time. So
I don't know what kind of present you'd give the guy. He's got
no, you don't
everything.
give him a present. You just say, "Wow, thank you."
Yeah. Okay, Jim, who would you give a present to?
I'd give a present this year to both General Motors and Chrysler for the Corvette coming out and the 2013 Viper, simply because in face of really aggressive new CAFE regulations and so on, they could have backed off the throttle a little bit and just sort of coasted by. They didn't. They both mashed it down and said, we're going to keep going. And for keeping the pedal to the metal on both those cars, that to me is it's going to be good. It's going to be something that's good for General Motors, good for Chrysler, and it's going to be good for customers for 5 or 6 years. So that's a present worth giving in my mind.
See, and I'd give a present to Ford sort of in that category because, I mean, the Shelby GT500, which, you know, has a reasonable 662 horsepower, but then they did that special thing for Carroll Shelby this year, where these Shelby supporters and Ford got together and they developed that car that
The Super Mustang.
810 horsepower. I mean, think about that for a minute.
Well, yeah, you know what, John, I've got that on my list too.
Oh, which one? The Cobra?
Well, I just say the Camaro Z01, the Shelby GT500 Mustang, and the Ford Focus ST.
And I'm glad you added the ST because I like that car.
If this is the end of the big horsepower era, then the Z01 Camaro and the Monster Mustang will take us out in a blaze of glory. And I applaud Ford for being the first American manufacturer in a long time to go after the hot hatch segment with a more than credible entry.
And Ben, punctuate that with a ho, ho, ho.
He's not cute.
No.
He's not cute.
But that Focus is a lot of fun to drive. Yeah. It's just a blast.
Yeah.
Okay, Gary, you sort of slid in there on top of Jim, but who else would you give?
Well, I would actually I'd give Dodge a present this year for the Dart. I think for a small car, and if you look at their history in small cars, not so good, but the design of that car I think is exquisite. I think that those guys have really done a fabulous job with that. And I think that that is the best example that, you know, the Chrysler design team is back, firing on all cylinders. Now, the curious part, of course, is why that car's not selling. I don't get that.
Oh, no, there's a logical reason why it's not selling. Seriously. They have had zero consideration in the segment because of that fabulous car called the Caliber. The Caliber burned up any kind of equity for a small car in the segment from Chrysler Corporation. You know, the Dart would be launching better now if it were called the Neon. I'm not saying it should have been, but they would be selling more because people don't even know what's out there. And the commercials, which I love, the commercials are great, but they don't tell you what the car is.
Yeah, but the launch commercial that was done for the Dart was the best work that Chrysler advertising did.
So about how difficult it is to develop a car that meets all these parameters.
It was extremely well done. You know, better than the horrible Clint Spot and anything else they've done.
Yeah, and the interior of that car is really nice. I mean, for a car in that segment, I mean, it's above and beyond, and it's just so extraordinary.
What they're going to have to do, the build consideration is this model year. They have to, and their advertising needs to now reflect that it is a small car. That's, if you're thinking about fill in the blank, you should think about this. And their advertising shows a car drifting with a guy that's a drift master in the dirt. That's not telling you anything about it. They now need to communicate about the car. And that will be the building of consideration. So, you know, everybody says, well, the sales are so far down. They said, compare it to the Caliber. The Caliber is their 0 point, not the Cruise.
It's going to take a while.
Of course. And you know what? It's significantly outselling the last Caliber.
It is, but they've tooled up that plant to sell a whole lot more than the Caliber.
I know.
So we'll see. I'm not giving up yet. You know, we've seen very few sales months, really only 2 decent ones. And November was down from October. Let's see what December brings. And so I'm not.
Well, they've got a lot of cars sitting on lots, though. So, you know, the number may be somewhat artificial.
Well, you know, I'm not talking day supply. I'm talking about what's actually sold.
The sales are when the dealer buys it. Sales are not registrations.
No, I'm talking retail sales, not wholesale.
Well, I hope
the
so,
numbers
because
that are being reported, though, are the sales to dealers.
No, they're retail.
Why are they so different from registration?
So, John, who's your present going?
Well, this is, you know, almost too easy, but I think Alan Mulally deserves another present.
No.
I think the guy's been amazing for Ford. He's changed the culture at the company. And we're in the transition right now.
He's grooming his successor.
I understand that, was it last Thursday was sort of a little changing of the guard in their Thursday morning
I think it was two Thursdays ago.
2 Thursdays ago, with their performance business review or business performance review, whatever it happens to be. But so, I mean, Alan's already started the transition process, but I don't know how you can do anything but give the guy a present for his performance.
I had to give him coal, though, to tell you the truth.
Oh, okay, good.
For actually announcing when he's leaving, and it gives all of us less to talk about.
Oh. Well, others have asked me, you know, because Ford has not really said, yep, Mark's the guy. Mm-hmm. All they've said is, oh, no, Mark is COO. And we're still determining, you know, if we're going to find somebody outside or inside or blah, 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 blah. So a lot of people on the outside have interpreted that to say, well, maybe Mark really doesn't have it. I don't see it that way at all. I think Mark's absolutely got it. And that Ford's got to be careful that they don't make Alan Mulally too much of a lame duck.
Agreed.
And, you know, and in the performance business reviews, or business process review. There, I finally got it right. You don't want Mulally just being another piece of furniture in the room. You know, he's still got to be recognized as the CEO of the company. So I don't think that Mark's in any danger of not getting the job. But anyway.
I suspect the people there respect the man sufficiently that if he were to say, you know, I'm leaving next Tuesday, that at 11:59 on Monday night, they would still be listening very carefully to what he had to say. I don't think that he'd be furniture under any circumstance.
Okay, let's go over to the lump of coal side of the story. And Peter, let's start with you.
Henrik Fisker. Your rolling note to self, a.k.a. the karma, must go away now. I mean, we've all done this long enough. It needs to go. It's overweight, overwrought. Overstyled.
So does this mean he replaces it with something?
No, the companies.
I think
I don't think they're going to make it.
I don't think they're going to make it. You know, their battery company is bankrupt, and now there's a court fight over who gets to own it. They're not making batteries. If they're not making batteries, Fisker's not making cars, and yet the bills come in every month.
Fisker hasn't been making cars. Valmet's been making cars and then delivering them to Fisker.
And guess what? Tesla, with all their accolades and group hugs, they just said, well, we're kind of out of money and we're going to need another big loan to survive.
I'll bet he gets the money, though. You know,
Elon... He will get the capital.
I think he will.
We'll get the capital.
Yeah, but how many cars are you going to...
Motor Trend Car of the Year? Tesla, that company?
Oh, that's true, gee.
You know, what was it? Automobile of the Year, too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but so there was a thing on Fortune magazine blog this week that says that Fisker is expected to generate about $200 million in
Yeah,
sales.
well, that's a credible source.
Fortune?
The blog. They're going to generate $200 million.
This guy's a reporter for...
Yeah, but
$200 million from what?
One of those reporters is green tinted to the point where his underwear especially dyed green. And
it's made of recycled fiber.
And when he writes about stuff, it's always about how Fisker and Tesla are the second coming. And then if he says it's going to generate $200 million, not a chance in hell.
This is the M&A guy, so this is not the...
Actually, we talked about that once before, that the best they could hope for is about $200 million on selling the allocation that we thought they were going to do and what it looks like the variable profit of the car is.
And they're not going to deliver that allocation, though.
Well, they're not doing 5,000. They're going to probably do 2,000, 2,500 this year.
No, you're talking two different companies, Fisker or Tesla.
Tesla.
Oh, yeah, Tesla.
Tesla, it says $106 million through the first 9 months.
Revenue.
Of company-generated revenue.
Yes.
So they might hit that, but Fisker's not going to hit that number simply because they're not building cars right now.
Yeah, so the question is, do the Chinese buy Fisker?
For what?
For what?
What do you get?
They get this company that they can put these batteries in that they're making.
They get this 5,500-pound Leviathan.
The world's heaviest Volt with a really sexy body and really big wheels.
It would seem that there's some Chinese out there that'll just buy anything. Why not try to sell them Fisker? Sure, go ahead. Why not? Gary, what do you got for a lump of coal?
Well, I would have to give a lump of coal to Ford for the Escape recalls this year. I mean, one Ford global product, 4 recalls,
Yeah, I have
3 for fire.
I have a lump of coal on general recalls. It's a bane of the business, and it's flat out unacceptable. I don't care what the car company.
I mean, this is a product that you would imagine that they really spent a lot of time, effort, in engineering to get it right. And, you know, it just seems very bizarre.
And a couple of those recalls were serious problems.
Well, yeah, I mean, the
Stop driving the car, we'll get you a rental.
Yeah.
Right. Serious.
Yeah, 1.6-liter EcoBoost engine, 3 recalls on that thing.
Right.
And the other was for a problem with the carpeting interfering with the brake pedal. So,
yeah, but you know what? Whenever I hear that kind of recall, it's just like, really? Are you that stupid that you can't see that maybe it's not a good idea that your mat is rolling around and you can't accelerate or brake? I mean, what? I don't get it.
I don't put any credence in that being a safety defect at all.
No, wasn't that basically what the Toyota recall was about?
Yeah.
The $17.5 million.
They're these recalls because we boomers are getting older and pushing on the wrong pedal.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Pedals are too damn small.
But, you know, Ford's had
Your feet are getting too big.
They've had issues with the Fusion as well, and now there's all this question about the fuel economy of their hybrids. And, they've run into some problems here. No question about it.
What about you, John?
Me for lump of coal, and this is going to be easy. Dan Ackerson, CEO and chairman of General Motors.
It's on my list, but you
I'll start, and then you can pick it up. But, I mean, you know, when I look at the amazing amount of market share that Chrysler has gained this year and what Marchionne's done with that company, when I see how Ford is changing its internal culture because of the leadership of Mulally, and I look at General Motors, and it's like, boy, if they hadn't gone through bankruptcy and had the government straighten out their books, I think they'd be in real deep trouble right now. I don't think the culture is changing at the company. I don't think this guy really understands the car business. I question appointments that he's making for executives in the company. I think the faster this guy retires, because that's what it's going to take to get him out of there, the better.
They say he's got one more year.
Yeah, I believe it.
From now.
Right.
But he not only doesn't understand the car business, he resolutely loathes the business and believes that his fellow telecommies, are so much smarter than these car company bozos. And I mean, and he insults the people who actually are keeping GM in the game on a regular basis, which are the true believers in product development, design, and engineering. These are the people who are keeping GM in the business. It's not Dan Ackerson, a.k.a. Captain Queeg, and his merry dancing minions. You know, and he just treats them all with contempt.
Well, I see
open contempt.
No, open contempt, and that's why morale is not good in where the true believers are.
Morale is the lowest it's ever been in the company.
You know, one consequence of this stock situation is going to be that they're going to not have those government dictates in terms of salary caps.
Oh no, that they're still in place.
They're still in place.
But Gary's right. That's going to go away.
It's going to go away because once the government owns less than half of what it owns, so if there's 500 million shares it owns right now, GM buys back 2, there's the 3, and then they begin to get rid of the rest. So that changes the game in some regards.
However,
so you got to wonder. I mean, why is he staying?
Well, however, it may change the game, but the word is out on this guy. And even if they're paying the money, you'd have to think long and hard about going to General Motors.
You would, if he's still a CEO.
Well, it's not only him being a CEO, it's the board.
Well, and that's my other lump of coal recipient, is the board.
They keep rubber stamping this. It's just...
You know, it's weird because it's exactly the same thing that happened with the previous administrations in General Motors, where you had incredibly incompetent financial decisions being made that drove horrible things happening in the business side in engineering and product development styling, and the board kept going, oh, okay. That it seems like General Motors, one of the requirements for being a board member is you have to be one of those ether-filled bobble birds. You know, where you just go, put a glass of water in front of them, they're fine. Maybe it's gin.
It should be gin. But, yeah, I think I would not invest in General Motors.
Well, I don't
not with that board and that CEO.
I don't call him the accidental tourist CEO for nothing. I mean, you know, it's just... he's got so much going against him, and he's got Selim Bengal, his PR guy. I mean, any PR guy, his or her job is to, defend his boss till the very end and try to make him look good. But the two of them together aren't exactly a winning combination in that regard, because, Dan just, every time he opens his mouth, it's something else is wrong. With what he's saying or what he's doing, or, he's just the wrong CEO at the wrong car company at the wrong time. And until GM, but it's not just him leaving in a year, there has to be a wholesale shift on that board.
I agree.
Otherwise, this company is going to be in this.
Change.
The only thing that has kept this company in the game through all these down years has been the product people. But the morale is so low, and they're thinking hard and long about why they're staying.
Well, the other thing that you have to ask about, too, is GM's been losing market share all year long. And even though they've got good product. And so they need a change in that company fast.
Yeah.
Jim, you got a lump of coal?
Well, I already did. Remember, I threw in the one about Mulally. So because by him going away, he ruins everything for us.
Okay.
I've got a present.
For who?
Martin Winterkorn.
Why, hey?
Head of the Volkswagen Group, and he has moved that company forward pretty much in every market they compete in, including Europe that's cavitating. Now, it's not that all their brands are bulletproof, because they're still having a hell of a time with Seat, and they probably will continue to. They got problems there, but generally speaking, he's getting it to move. The progression they made in the United States this year is far better than a lot of people expected. And they're going to be more aggressive. They've got a more aggressive platform strategy. So I say Winterkorn's right now firing on all what is it, probably 16 cylinders because they've still got a few Virons to build.
Well, now I've got to cross that off my list because I was going to give Winterkorn a present for the exact same reasons that you're talking about.
You know.
And, you know, I'm wowed by Volkswagen having more employees than anybody else
and
in the
still
business.
Making money.
And still making money, whereas anybody else from outside would come in and say, oh, you have way too many employees. They have almost 540,000 globally. More than twice as much as General Motors.
Yeah.
In fact, just about the same as GM, Ford, and Fiat Chrysler combined.
And they're going to make more money because of this radical, well, you know about...
the platform strategy.
Yeah, the platform strategy is just, you know...
What's the platform strategy?
The one where they're going to be able to build the multiplicity of vehicles using elements that will basically be like Lego blocks.
Oh,
so once you have your kit of Lego, you know, you're good to go for building damn near anything.
The major architectural difference is whether the engine's going sideways or front to back. That's it.
And, you know, you mentioned the employees, but, you know, I just had an S7 to drive, and it had everything on it. And I wrote about it was like $94,000. And it's easy to see where the profitability is because that's basically an A4 underneath, maybe.
Yeah, it's an A4 plus.
A4, A6.
Right. Because it's the new it's the new longitudinal architecture, and
so it's you know,
and it's worth the 90 grand. That's the thing. It's not like they've taken something that was substandard and threw a big price on it. It's worth it.
See, and the thing that I find to be interesting, and one of the presents I was going to get was to Audi for continuing to use technology at Le Mans.
Yes.
Okay. And so, you know, when you look at the production cars that are coming out of Volkswagen Group, I mean, they're getting the technology as well. I mean, it's not like, okay, we're going to have it over here and people can see it on television or, you know, see it live at the racetrack. We're going to sell it to people. We're going to develop this stuff. We're going to productionize this stuff, and we're going to put it in the cars. And you're going to buy it, and you know you're going to love it because you can just see that.
And then you will come back and buy another.
And they just announced the R20, which is this new supercar that's based on their racing Le Mans winning technology. And the other beautiful thing is Ferdinand Piëch, the supreme leader, knowing full well that Audi has this reputation at Le Mans, could easily have said, you guys have done it now.
Yeah.
11 wins and 13 years, whatever it is, stand down. No, he says, no, you will compete against Porsche. It doesn't matter.
Yep. Because that was the issue, was that now that Porsche's, you know, in-house, there's this whole question of who really does get to use Le Mans as their venue. And part of the strategy at one time said, well, that's going to go back to Porsche because they have this long heritage of it. And that Audi may look at Formula One.
Right.
And somebody said, Formula One, bad idea right now. Just don't bother. And Kaiser Piëch was right. He says you do both brands there.
And they're going to spend, I mean, Audi's been spending over $100 million a year to win basically that race. I mean, they run the cars. They run the cars other places.
And they win at other races too. Unless it's...
But they're there for Le Mans.
Of course.
But Porsche's coming back in 2014-15, and they're going to just say, go at it, boys.
The right way to do it.
Yep.
Which is why we're talking so much about Volkswagen here. How interesting.
And you know, in some ways, Volkswagen is Sloan General Motors at its finest.
Absolutely.
A series of vertically integrated businesses that are responsible to make their own money and responsible basically to kick butt and take names.
Right.
I wonder what every person's purpose would be auf Deutsch.
Let me think.
Well, they've, you know, they're the first car company since the heyday of General Motors have been able to project differentiating images in a large body of work.
But because again, you know, they're not just saying, oh, let's put another design studio next to this design studio and they can do a whole nother brand. No, it's a totally different company, brand by brand by brand.
Yep.
It's brilliant.
And in GM's heyday, that's exactly what they were.
Right. Exactly.
It's what they should go back to. I used to say that it's too late. Now I'm starting to believe, no, it's not too late.
No, they could. The truth is, they could reconstruct General Motors.
Right.
But it would be an agonizingly complex thing that's probably beyond the skills of anybody on the board or upper management.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, all Eckerson repeatedly says, well, I'm changing their culture. No, you're not.
Yeah,
you're not changing the way fundamentally they go about their business. He thinks he is. He really isn't.
Let's stop beating up on the captain.
Okay.
mean?
For the time being.
Oh, okay.
But let's go to lumps of coal then, all right? Or what did you have there, Peter?
No, go ahead.
Well, I'll go then. Bob King, president of the UAW. I mean, this guy is leading them down the primrose path. I think I was going to write an article called "It's the Beginning of the End for the UAW," and then I realized no, the beginning of the end started 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Now we're getting deep into the fourth quarter of the union, and I don't see them surviving. And I'm not basing it on this right to work legislation that was just enacted in Michigan. It's that I think the union's been going downhill, and Bob King is accelerating its decline. And, when you look at how, I think I added it up, when you look at all the assembly plants, engine plants, transmission plants, and everything that foreign car companies have built in North America, it's something like 26 manufacturing facilities, not one UAW employee in any of them. So when you look at
The new construction
over the last several decades. But what I'm getting at is that the UAW used to have a monopoly on automotive labor in the United States and Canada. And all the suppliers, all the car companies had to have the union. There was so they had a monopoly. And now, they lost Canada, those two split. The transplants come in, now 26 manufacturing North American facilities later. In fact, that's not even counting Canada, Toyota and Honda up there. So it's even more than that. The writing's on the wall. They're more, every day that goes by, they represent fewer and fewer workers in the automotive industry. I think the writing's on the wall. And even though King came in talking all these grandiose things that he was going to do to organize the transplants, nothing's happened. And now they just enacted right-to-work legislation in their home state of Michigan.
Yeah, which is really, we're talking almost the death throes now of the UAW.
I think it'll be around for another couple of decades, but it may not last that long because right now, based on what I've been able to research, the union is taking money out of its investments to pay for its daily activities. It's not getting enough union dues to pay for its operational expenses. And remember now, we're going to see a whole generation of boomers retire and new workers get hired in at half wages. Well, guess what? Your dues are based on 2 hours of pay a month. And if you're coming in at half wages, that's half the dues right there. So if you already can't make your operational expenses based on dues and you're about to see them drop in half again or something along those lines, to me, the writing's on the wall.
Although, it seems that their survival will be predicated on their changing their operational patterns, okay? They're going to have to do different things. So that may allow them to continue to exist longer, assuming that they do fundamentally change what their value proposition is to their membership.
I agree totally, Gary. And when that change happens, I'll agree even more. But I don't see it happening.
I think it's going to have to. It's...
Well, yeah, but all indications are that Bob King, he's still embracing the hoary rhetoric and all the old saber rattling, and it's he's increasingly irrelevant, because the tide has turned.
Well, he led this Proposition 2 in the state of Michigan.
Which he was warned
not to do.
Not to do.
Because he would stir up a hornet's nest and get all the right-to-work people madder than hell.
And in case
Which is exactly what happened.
Which is
in case
exactly
the viewers and listeners don't know what Proposition 2 was, it was to change the Michigan state constitution to legitimize the union in the state constitution. Well,
yeah.
Thankfully, the voters were smarter than that and said, "No way, that's going to happen."
Right. So that was a calculated risk, but it
didn't go the way he expected.
It failed horribly bad. Horribly, it's gone very bad. Anyway, that's my lump of coal for Bob King. Who else? Gary, you got another lump there?
I would give a lump of coal to pretty much all the big six automakers. As I know you're familiar with, Planning Perspectives does an analysis of the relationships between the OEMs and the suppliers, and they're all going south. They're all treating
I thought Chrysler was improving.
Well, but they're improving, but they're still
down.
They're still down. I mean, so there's you see that Toyota and Honda, which are above and beyond what everybody else is,
but coming down
fast.
Yep.
And the other guys, after all these years, they're improving, and when the release comes out, it makes it sound like, oh, it's all sweetness and light.
But Chrysler's going against the trend line of everybody else.
Not exactly.
Not from what I'm hearing.
No, but the point is that, the industry isn't just about the OEMs. The industry is predicated on what the suppliers can bring to cars. And if we're getting to the point where the suppliers are not feeling as though they're valued partners, and that's the rhetoric that we often hear from the OEM executives about, oh, these are our partners and we love them, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, if you're negotiating with somebody because you want to sell your widgets to them and they come...
I think what we're seeing, though, is this concept of supercritical purchasing mass, that these guys are getting more and more power, generally speaking, as the number of suppliers is reducing, and they're trying to get their volume or their platform volume up, so they say, hey, we're going to tell you the price.
Right.
And I think the suppliers were hoping that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. So I just think I think that the behaviors have to get better. I mean, for the good of the entire industry. I mean, everybody benefits if people are feeling better about one another.
It's interesting because, if you talk to the purchasing people at the Big Six, as you call them, they all talk, oh, they're our partners, collaboration. But what you're saying here is that's not what the suppliers...
The reality is they willingly take ideas from the suppliers, and more often than not, that's right at the critical juncture where this is the payoff for the supplier. They say, we're going to bid this idea out
to other people,
and we're going to share it with your competitors. And also, you're going to charge us half of what you're saying you're going to charge us for. When you have that repeated attitude in this business, and I don't care who the manufacturer is, they all do it. And especially the Fiat Chrysler boys, they're like, we don't want to really pay that much, so just cut it in half and give us a call. But... No, but that's, and it's all BS when the car companies say, oh, yeah, there's our trusted suppliers. We bring our arms around. No, that's not the way it works.
Well, they bring their arms around and they're grabbing the neck of the supplier and squeezing tightly. Yeah. If they got the thumbs in the right position. No, never mind.
You got a lump there, Jim?
Oh, I got a lump. Personally, to Akio Toyoda.
Oh, okay, we're going to argue on this
because of something he did 6 days ago that I cannot forgive him for.
Uh-oh.
Did you return your phone call?
Terminating production of the LFA before I could put a deal together to buy one. And it's devastating to me because that was the car that to me was singularly the most amazing car on the market for the past year and a half, 2 years.
Really?
Nothing would...
Well, the video was cool.
The whole car is amazing, and driving it is like driving nothing else on earth. You can argue with the design, but boy...
This is the first car I've ever been in that truly has...
Here we got audio out here again.
But it's an astonishing car. It genuinely is. And they built their number of cars, they said?
500.
500. They're finished. The last car was I believe, a white Nürburgring package car. Rolled off the line last Friday.
Yep.
For what, 400,000?
No.
You got to ask.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what market it is. We got them cheaper than anybody else.
What, 3.25?
Yeah. High threes with a Nürburgring package. But.
See, and I'm giving Akio Toyoda a present because I think what he's done with Toyota is amazing. Here's a company that here's a guy that inherited a company literally, even though his name's on the not on the building, is it?
There's a letter
incorporation papers.
Yeah,
but nonetheless, I mean, Toyota 3 years ago they couldn't do anything right. And here they're still paying the fine for the boneheaded moves that were made 3 years ago. This guy steps in, and boy, that company has changed dramatically.
Just what's happened with Lexus on a global basis is amazing. And it's going to be more aggressive the next 2 years.
So Akio or Alan?
I think they sort of go hand in hand. I think they've been transformational agents at each company.
In some ways, you couldn't find two more different ways that they do it, though. That's what's so amazing. I mean, Mulally explains the idea, and here's what we're going to do, and he gets the people to do it. And Akio's coming in and saying, you know what, we got to restructure this part of the company. It is not entrepreneurial enough. Boom, goes through like a dose of salts. And in a Japanese company, the effect of that is far more. I mean, I can see there are guys that are there at upper managers at Toyota that are probably going home yodeling into their sake every night.
Oh yeah, look, let's. We got more to get to here, but let's take another quick commercial break. Ben, let's give a shout out to our friends at Chevrolet.
It was more than a car to him. It really was his baby.
Oh no, that's my old Chevy. Dear God.
Probably Peter's turn. What do you got? A lump of coal or a present here?
A lump of coal for the quote-unquote visionary leaders of Mazda, who actually think they're going to take Mazda upmarket, which is just a disaster of just enormous proportion. And I read the interview with the guy, and I was just like shaking my head. Oh my God, you're not really saying this, are you? I mean, what's wrong with being a competently designed, built,
sporty volume car
with great dynamics and fun to drive? What's wrong with that? There's still a place for that.
You get to warrant a premium over the guys that are building basically commodity cars in the segment because of that alone.
So I just think it's a bad move.
See, Peter, this might be a new trend though, because your friend Mr. Marchionne said today, we decided to shift away from mass car making and compete in the upscale market.
Oh God!
So when they made that announcement about building the Jeep and the the Fiat 500 XL or something like that in the
500L.
I have special prosciutto encrusted night vision goggles that are aimed at Auburn Hills, and he will get my biggest lump of coal this year. So I don't even need to add, and I think the viewers know what I think.
Yeah, you've made no mystery about what you think of Sergio. I go by results, and I think the guy's delivered results. So, but Jim, you said you've got a combo here, President Cole.
Yeah, a present to Honda Motors for actually building an Accord that's better than its predecessor, and probably more important, fixing the lousy 10th generation Civic that they did, because that at launch that vehicle was just awful. I mean, and that to me warrants a present. But a lump of coal to them for approving the lousy 10th generation Civic to begin with, so they had to fix it. That tells me there's something wrong in the house where they let that car get to a point in there. They said, oh, with tsunami, and we had problems with this, and we couldn't. The decision to do it was made by management. They approved a car that was the antithesis of what Hondas have been, especially what Civics have been. Because say what you want about the Accord, the Civic is the core of that business because it's the closest thing to a global car they have. The Accord we get is sold here, it's sold in Australia, I believe, and it's sold, of course, in Japan as some sort of low-volume car called an Inspire or something. But woe to them for approving that car to begin with. They have got to find out why it got approved and stop that, or they're going to turn themselves into General Motors.
I think you're focusing too much on that one car. I think so much of the company got off the rails.
Right, but when you have a program, you spend that kind of money to fix, so you approve it, but you know it's wrong. Something is drastically wrong with the system when you're approving substandard cars. And when you know they're substandard, if you're that dumb and happy and you don't know they're substandard, like your General Motors saying a 1.8 liter J car, the first Cavalier, is just fine. Doesn't make any difference if the engine sounds like tuna cans instead of pistons in there. It's okay, because we're GM, we're Chevy, we'll sell them. But when you when you approve it, see there's a problem and go, oh, heck. And you prove it anyway. That to me it's one of those things. That's something they have got to get fixed. And I keep having friends say, yeah, but look they're selling really well.
Well, I was just going to ask you, what's the best-selling car in America?
Stop and think about it. General Motors had the best-selling car with the Cavalier, and the car was absolutely an unmitigated piece of something that came out of the wrong end of a dog. Yet, it was selling well. Sales inertia, because of brand strength and basically convulsive buyers.
And dealer strength.
Yep, has nothing to do with the health of the company. And the problem is it's misunderstood to be the health of the company. Oh, we're fine. So that's a big lump of coal for them on that one. I'm sorry, I had to do that.
Okay, good one. Gary?
What are we looking for? Coal or
pick one?
Well, I want to. I remember a few months ago we were talking, and we don't give Nissan sufficient attention and love, and I got to give them a present for supporting the Delta Wing. I think that's a again. Using racing technology and saying, okay, we're going to develop the engine, we're going to allow the car to exist and help.
I'm glad you brought that up because I will reserve 2 lump of coals for 2 American companies
for passing it up
who turned the project down. Now you're talking about a project that maybe required $11 million up front and however much you want to activate it beyond that. For a car with presence at Le Mans.
That would have been $11 million for to get it to Le Mans and race it there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And however much you want to spend on activating it, and they turned it down. Very unfortunate.
So yeah, big props to Nissan for that, I think.
Big props to Nissan. And they're doing a lot of other good stuff, too. I mean, we've talked enough about the Leaf, and that's not maybe one of the things that's really working well for them.
But they do great in this U.S. market.
They do well here, and, they committed, and I give Goen credit for this, to the CVT. And damn if they're not making this thing work. And I'm telling you, real world, even though I'm not the biggest fan of CVTs from the way they drive, they deliver real fuel economy.
They have one of the best CVTs in the world. There's no doubt about it. But that's like saying that of all the STDs, yours is the easiest to cure.
I personally, I love the Juke. And the moment they bring out one with 350 horsepower and all-wheel drive.
Well, you fell in love with that GTR Juke, didn't you?
Well, of course I did.
Yeah. The Juke is one of those cars, though. It literally is, it'll sear your retinas if you stare at it too long. It really will.
Well, I kind of like it, though. I like the way it looks.
I do, too.
It's so...
And I like the way it drives.
Shiro Nakamura told me that no one can look at that car and not smile. And I think he's right.
Oh, I throw up a little bit in my mouth every time I see it.
But then you smile.
No, I don't. I try to spit out the horrible flavor.
You have that grimace that looks like Jack Nicholson playing the Joker.
Just call me. Jack is dead.
So we're getting near the end. I'm going to throw out a few more of my presents. Carroll Shelby, because what he and his band of hot rodders in California achieved was, just fabulous. And when I mention true believers in this business, the people who are actually doing the job, Carroll Shelby and his hot rodder posse really define what true believers are, because they
lived the dream.
Yeah, and they delivered.
I mean,
did whatever they could to get stuff out.
Yeah, and my other presents hand in hand with that are the design and the designers. Still my favorite part of the business. Still the most exciting part. We did that fabulous
GM Design
show.
Center tour with Ed Welburn. That was awesome.
That was just fabulous. And finally, to the true believers themselves who, stay focused and crank it out. And
regardless of the politics.
Yeah, regardless of the politics. And, they're the reasons that the cars that you happen to like out there drives the way it does and
look the way they do. You're right.
Yeah, and that's...
See, but for them it ought to be even more fun, though, don't you think? I mean,
for the true
all this
believers?
politic crap.
But that's why they need the present. They need the present to get them through it.
Yeah. So that's my...
Good. Anybody else? Any last ones there, Gary?
No, I think I'm good here.
Jim?
I've got one, and it flies in the face of one of Peter's, but it's to Sergio. He's the CEO of Fiat Spa and Fiat Group Automobiles Spa, chairman of CEO of Chrysler Group LLC, chairman of Fiat Industrial and CNH, as well as the chairman of Swiss-based SGS. And he gets one just for holding all those jobs and seeming to be able to get the job done. I mean, it's tough,
But as I said in the site, Fiat Chrysler, with his 34 direct reports or whatever, he's setting up that company for failure after he leaves, because there is no one person who can do what he does the way he does it. So he'll be able to sit back and say, see, they cannot succeed without me.
Well, I agree. If he were to step off the curb today and get hit by a bus, I agree with you totally. I bet you they put a succession plan in place, and God help them if they don't.
Mm-hmm.
The one last one I had...
Dan Eckerson will be available next year.
Yeah, right. That would be just like him deciding that PX should be his successor.
I'll end on one last lump of coal. I give a lump of coal to the Secretary of Transportation, Ray LaHood, for mandating these backup cameras, which I don't think is the right way to go.
Are they back on again? Because they were on and then off.
Yeah, right.
And they turned them back on.
Well, look, he's about to step out. Actually, he hasn't said that yet. Earlier in the year, he made it sound like, oh, yeah, he's going to leave, because I think he figured he wasn't going to be asked to stay. So you may as well say, oh, yeah, I plan to leave.
You look good that way when they ask you to leave.
Right, yeah. You say, oh, yeah, I planned this all along. Now he's sort of making noises like he might stay, but nonetheless, he's got this camera mandate, which is going to be known as the LaHood mandate. And I'm not necessarily against mandates, but I'm saying go with those ultrasonic sensors that work.
You mean don't tie it to a single technology?
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I don't think the camera technology really is all that good in all kinds of weather situations. And I think if you really want to stop somebody from backing up over a little kid, having something beep at the driver is going to grab their attention a whole lot more than a screen that might be stuck in the rear view mirror where it's hard to see anything.
You're right, but a lot of boomers will still step on the gas pedal instead of the brake pedal trying to stop.
That they will.
Yeah. We could just design thinner
Are we going to get any comments? Or?
Z columns.
Well, I'm taking a quick look at some of the questions that have come in here, and they're not. They're just about anything on the industry, not pertinent to the show.
Top 10 brands.
Okay, we got 2 calls here, and we did hear one that was recorded earlier. So, yeah, let's bring in Scott in Cleveland.
Hi, this is Scott in Cleveland. I was just wondering on the Kobo renovations, how they're coming along, and look forward to going to the show this year. See ya.
Well, I just happened to drive by Kobo Hall not even a week ago, and the amount of reconstruction going on there had my jaw drop. I cannot believe
it's amazing.
They're really going to change it. We're not going to see so much at this coming auto show next month, but in 2014, it's going. The transformation will be complete. And I was driving by there 10 o'clock at night.
Well, Kobo Arena is going to be finished for this thing, right?
No,
it isn't finished.
No.
Okay, so Ford won't be in there. They'll actually have to have something on a stand.
I believe so.
I think it's Joe Louis again.
Yeah, right.
They did Joe Louis last year.
Right. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool when they get the thing done. Let's put it this way: it's a significant facelift. After this, they got to bulldoze the place and start anew someplace. But in any case, the Kobo Hall Kobo Center renovations are coming along.
This is a mid-cycle change.
Yeah.
Rather than a full platform change.
There you go. Okay, and one more phone call, Ben. Let's bring it in.
Hi, Ben. This is Youngblood calling in Cleveland, Ohio.
Youngblood.
I give you guys a present for the fantastic show you have, time and time again. So a present to you guys. Happy holidays, and enjoy your time off.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Boy, that was great.
Good. That's cool. And this is a good place to wrap it up. So, Gary Vasilash, Automotive Design and Production magazine. Good having you here again.
Thank you.
Jim Hall, 2953 Analytics.
Yes, sir.
Always good having you.
Great to be here. Thank you, and happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah, and Peter De Lorenzo, the Autoextremist.
Yeah, Jim.
It's been good.
Another year,
and we'll let everybody know this is the last show of the year. We're all going to be on vacation next week, or I certainly am, and so is the crew here. So, it's been a cool year. We've had a lot of fantastic shows, and we'll pick it up again first Thursday of the new year.
So you'll see them all next year.
We'll see them all next year. So Merry Christmas, or whatever you celebrate, if it's Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or none of the above, just have a great end of the year, people.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone, your journey, our passion, and by Chevrolet. Chevy runs deep.
Visit our website, Autoline.tv, where you can watch us live Thursday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern. Get your daily news fix with Autoline Daily and in-depth analysis and interviews with Autoline This Week. There's all that and much more at Autoline.tv.